It's amazing that over $49 billion is unclaimed, waiting to be returned to the rightful owner, according to SmartAsset. And I can remember several years ago where they guesstimated the number to be more like 7 trillion. However, obviously, some of it they don't even know is missing, right? I mean, because they don't know that the person's either died or something's happened to them. According to the National Association of Unclaimed Property Administrators, over 3 billion in unclaimed property is returned to its owner by the state governments each year. Now, obviously, some of that is the owner and some of it's the beneficiary. So, those numbers could be off. I would say probably the 49 billion is pretty conservative. But regardless, the number is huge. What I want to dive into today is, first of all, just to give you some insight on how to find unclaimed assets and money. And then we're going to review the different types of unclaimed assets, as well as money you may have forgotten you have that I have seen real time happen. So hopefully that's going to help you. So let's dive into how to find money unclaimed and forgotten. Hi, my name is Annette Bau, your host of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. I'm a certified financial planner and founder of the Millionaire Insider. For over 30 years, I have been advising and researching the top 1% of millionaires, and I am passionately obsessed with money, mindset, and the intersection of self-worth and net worth, and how the two connect and allow us to live fulfilled and wealthy lives on our terms. I'm a Midwestern girl who had a dream, began investing $25 a month 35 years ago, and today have a multi-million-dollar net worth. I teach the tried and true that only someone with over 3 decades of experience advising millionaires would know. This podcast is different, about much more than money. We talk about mindset, success, money blocks, worth barometer, and all aspects of money and topics from practical manifestation, along with real-world how-to and everything in between, with the goal of making your journey easier and more fun. Think of this as coffee, actually matcha tea, learning real-world common sense money and life advice from a BFF that you can start applying today. If you want to create a financially free life you love, you are in the right place, my friend. This is the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. So today's free resource is our estate planning checklist. You can go to themillionaireinsider.com/EPC to access it. This checklist is a guide that provides you insight on ways to look at your overall estate plan so that you don't forget about assets, as well as get your affairs in order so that when something happens to you, whether you become incapacitated or die, your wishes are going to come to fruition. And whoever you want to get your assets will get them. And I think there's a lot of us that could think of people we wouldn't want to get our assets. And that's one of the reasons it's so important to have a proper estate plan. One of the things I've found in my career is that when people have estate plans, they have less stress. What ends up happening is they remember more assets because it's top of mind. Whereas when they're just going about their life, they get busy, they've got all the things going on, a lot of times it's easy to forget about assets. And as you're going to find in this podcast, you cannot believe the number of people who have forgotten about homes. Now they know they have the home, but what they've forgotten about is to pay the taxes, which if you don't pay the taxes, ultimately they take the home and they will sell it. So we don't want that to be you. So again, I encourage you to download this guide. You can access it at themillionaireinsider.com/EPC. All materials and intellectual property are copywritten by themillionaireseries.com. The information we provide is not intended to replace any advisor or specialist or to provide you any investment, estate, financial, tax, retirement, or any planning or healthcare advice. All participants agree to hold millionaireseries.com and its affiliates harmless for results achieved or not achieved. And it's especially important today because we are talking about topics that can require additional insight and support. So just make sure that if you need help, you are getting it from a qualified advisor or attorney or CPA. For today's show notes, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/42. So let's dive into how to find money unclaimed and forgotten. So the first thing we're diving into is where to find unclaimed money. One of the most common places is in the unclaimed property databases. Most governments have websites where you can go and search for unclaimed property. You want to check the website of either the state or country where you reside or where a loved one who passed resided. You can just go to a search engine, put in the name of your country or state, and then use keywords like unclaimed property, lost money, missing assets, anything along those lines. You can also visit NAPA, which is National Association of Unclaimed Property Administrators, their website. I'll provide a link to it in the show notes, but they allow you to look for unclaimed property in the US and in Canada. You can also visit their website at unclaimed.org and click on the relevant state or province to begin your search. That's going to be really helpful. Another place are financial institutions. Now, it can be a bank account, a safety deposit box, or even an investment account. But you want to contact the financial institution where you or your deceased relatives had accounts, especially if you've moved or you may have forgotten one. If you're not sure, meaning it's a deceased relative or it's even maybe yourself and you just don't remember it, go look at old tax returns. And oftentimes you can find names of accounts that reported income and that were on your tax return. So that can be really helpful. You also can search federal agencies to look for unclaimed money. The U.S. federal government has a database for unclaimed savings bonds, and the U.S. government website has a search for unclaimed money at the federal level. So again, you just got to kind of see where you believe you're missing money and then just start doing a research to see what you can find. Another really helpful insight are former employers. If you or your heir have changed jobs, I encourage you to contact your former employer to inquire about any unclaimed wages or retirement funds. From one of the real-world examples I'm going to give you, one of my clients had totally forgotten about a 401k she had like 40 years ago, and she gets a check for $4,500. I mean, it's not pocket change, some of these amounts of money. Life insurance companies, you want to check and see if there are any life insurance policies on your deceased relative or if there's any unclaimed benefit. Now, if you're not sure, just go through their check register as far back as you can and see if there were any payments being made to an insurance company. That's a pretty good indication. Now, there are other types of insurance that sometimes have a benefit. Long-term care may, as well as other types. So you just have to check. And it's tedious, but oftentimes it can be well worth it. You want to check with tax authorities in your country and or state to see if you have unclaimed tax refunds or if a heir does, meaning somebody that has left you money. If you do not have an inventory of assets, review previous tax returns, and it's going to show you assets that generated reportable income. So that's also something you want to be checking for. And then utility companies, you want to check and see if there's any deposits or refunds owed to you or one of your heirs. There are online services that specialize in helping people find unclaimed money for a fee. Now, just be cautious and research the credibility before you use them. You want to make sure you're using a really good one. Ways to find money that you may have forgotten that you had. Over the years, I have heard so many stories about people forgetting about assets, and I've also witnessed it myself. Now, all of the examples I share regarding clients, I've had permission to share their story. One of the most important things you can do is to complete an annual balance sheet. A balance sheet provides you a snapshot of your assets and liabilities. I have had so many people who have remembered assets they forgot they had simply by completing a balance sheet. The first one did not find it by completing a balance sheet, but it's such an important one. I wanted to give you insight on it. It was a 401k. My client had worked for quite a few years, over 45 years ago. And she received a letter from her state of residence saying there was unclaimed money. She completed the form and got over $4,500. Always, always make sure that those claims are legitimate, because you can have scam artists asking you for information and taking advantage of you. So you want to make sure it's legitimate. And if ever concerned, caution and error. Contact your state. There's a phone number for most states and countries. I'm sure other countries have it too, where you can actually contact them and ask them about unclaimed property. I encourage you to do that. You don't want to be finding out that somebody's gotten your information and now they have stolen your identity. Real estate has been a big one. And in all the 3 cases, there might have even been 4, but for sure 3, clients had lived in one state and then they moved to another one. They had their asset listed on their balance sheet, but they failed to update their address for tax notifications. And so whenever we're reviewing assets on a balance sheet, we always ask if they're paying property taxes. And in each one of these situations, they were not. And one was almost going to go up for auction. Oh my gosh, don't let that be you. What happens when you own your home free and clear? You are required to pay the taxes directly to the municipality. And if you don't update the address with the tax authority, you won't get your annual property tax notification. So I recommend that you, in addition to making sure that you've got that updated with the appropriate municipality, also you want to list all the dates your tax payments are due and then make sure that they clear your account. And I know it doesn't seem like a big deal when you have one home, but when you have 3 or 4 or 5 different buildings or 10 or 20, it becomes very difficult. One of the things that happened with one of our lots that we purchased, we did not get a notification for the taxes. Well, it turns out that one of the clerks down at the county had typed in our mailing address incorrectly when we closed escrow. And so we never got it. That was the first year. So we went ahead and paid it. They said they corrected it. Great. Didn't get it the next year. Called. It still hadn't been corrected. So it'll be interesting to see if we get it this upcoming year. Again, it's just something to be aware of. In 2 other situations, I had clients that discovered they had stock that they had forgotten about. And in one case, it was worth almost $1 million. I mean, I know that sounds, for some people listening, oh my gosh, that could never happen to me. But believe me, once you start getting more and more assets, it can be very difficult to remember what assets you own. And having a snapshot once a year, right now it's a perfect time to do it, meaning to be updating your balance sheet. You just want to be paying attention to that. The next case was a quadro, which is a qualified domestic relations order. It's what happens when a couple gets divorced. The court orders retirement to be split. So a lot of times in the past, it's been the husband's retirement that the wife's getting, and she gets it through a quadro. That's changing. Most cases in the past, that's what it's been. So one of my clients' children got divorced about 20 years ago. And about 5 years after her divorce, she got a package from her lawyer. She was really stressed out, and she put it just together with all of her divorce paperwork. We ended up needing proof of her name change and a copy of the divorce decree, and in the process discovered that she had a quadro. She was entitled to half of her ex-spouse's retirement account and another 401k from a previous employer, totaling almost well over $60,000. And had we not gone through that gyration of needing information for an estate plan, she may never have gotten that. And it's going to end up being a significant amount of money. There are so many opportunities when it comes to not only looking for assets that may be out there that are yours, but also remembering your assets so you don't forget them. I hope this was as insightful for you as it has been for some of my clients who would have literally lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, by not going through this gyration. So let's recap how to find money unclaimed and forgotten. Always check with your state or country if you have a deceased relative or believe you may have money you forgot. Contact previous employers and review tax returns to confirm you did not forget about other assets, because you're going to see assets that have generated income, and it's going to give you some insight as to where there might be other accounts. Also, remember to look through your heirs or your deceased relatives' checking account to see if there were any payments being made to any companies where you can then go check and see if there are assets that are unclaimed, whether it's life insurance, whether it's long-term care, or some other asset. It's helpful to contact previous employers and review tax returns to confirm that you didn't forget about other assets. Always complete an annual balance sheet. This is going to be so helpful as your assets grow. It's also going to be a motivator to get your assets growing, because once you start seeing your wealth growing, you start seeing the impacts of compound interest. It is just so motivating to save more money. This is going to help to ensure that you don't forget or lose assets for unpaid taxes or assets that you forgot about. And always review paperwork you receive. This should go without saying, but if you don't have the time or expertise, then hire an advisor or an attorney. So important. If you love the content of this podcast, please follow and subscribe to our channel so you get notified of episodes, and also give us a 5-star review and share a comment. We really appreciate it. Congratulations on taking another step to create a financially free life you love. If you're not sure about your financial future or that it's in order, or you are ready to stop worrying about money, or possibly the fear of becoming a bag lady, ending up broke in retirement, or you simply are ready to know your financial house is in order so that you can have a bright financial future, please go to themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. And that doesn't stand for non-sufficient funds. It stands for Next Step Finance. It's the next best step of what you need to do so you can avoid an NSF notice in your future. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. The number of women who were not broke or poor while working or married is staggering. The entire mission of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast is to ensure you have the information for you, your family, your friends, anyone who's willing to listen to it and apply it so that you can create a financially free life you love. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. Until our next episode, take one action that will help you create a financially free life you love. All right, I want to thank you so much for joining me for How to Find Money Unclaimed and Forgotten. I'm Annette Bau, host of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. All international copyrights are reserved. Bye for now.